A peripety is a literary device that describes a plot twist, an unexpected turn of events. A peripety is what causes you to stay up late at night reading the book way past your bedtime because you can't believe what you just read. In the case of Esther, there is a peripety parade. Mordecai all of a sudden found a spine and refused to bow. Esther's 3-day fast resulted in once-in-a-lifetime moment of courage. Esther told the king what Haman intended to do. Haman went from second in command to shish kebab on a steak. Mordecai went from sackcloth to the king's robes. And God's people went from Esther 4:3 to Esther 8:15. Here's 4:3. There was great mourning among the Jews with fasting and weeping and wailing. Many lay in sackcloth and ashes. That's Esther 4:3. Now compare that with Esther 8 and verse 16. For the Jews, it was a time of happiness and joy, gladness and honor. Are you closer to Esther 4 or Esther 8 today? Is your life more a season of weeping and lamenting and sadness? And do you long for an Esther 8 to come? A time of rejoicing and joy and celebration. But does the promise of Esther chapter 8 simply seem too remote, too distant, too impossible to you? Maybe the cancer has taken its toll. Maybe the pandemic has taken all your joy. Maybe you live under the shadow of a Haman. Maybe you report to some self-centered creep. Maybe you work for a person who's out of touch with reality. Maybe you feel married to a spouse who isn't the same person that you married. The struggles of life have pilfered your life. And you don't know where to turn. And you really wonder if faith is worth the risk. You've been disappointed so many times. And you're so very, very, very tired. You're tired of conflict. You're tired of uncertainty. You're tired of that stinking mask. You're just tired. You're worn out. Your needle is on empty. And you're really thinking about just giving up. I get it. No one faults you. It's rough. You're sailing into headwinds. No one doubts that. But with every ounce of energy I can muster, I urge you, do not give up. There is too much at stake. You have children to think about. You have grandchildren to think about. You have a legacy to think about. You have friends and neighbors who are searching the horizon for somebody who has an ounce of hope left to share. You can be that person because you know something they do not know. You know that God is a peripety-making God. You know the story of Abraham and Sarah, how they were old and childless one day and stunned and pregnant the next. Peripety. You know the story of Joseph in ancient Egypt, how he was in an Egyptian prison one night and went to sleep in the Egyptian palace as prime minister the next. Peripety. You know the story of the Red Sea, how it was a wall of water one moment and how it was an open path for the ex-Hebrew slaves the next. Peripety. You know the story of Joshua and the city of Jericho, how they walked around the city 6 times and nothing happened. Out of obedience, they kept walking. And on the 7th, the walls came down. You know what we call that? You know the story of David and Goliath, how for 40 days, every morning and every evening, this 9-foot, 9-inch giant came belching in the valley of Elah, defying any Israelite to take up weapons and come at him. And then here comes that little shepherd boy David, and he reached down into the creek and he pulled out a peripety and he put it in his sling, and down went the giant. You know the story of the worshipers of Baal who defied the living God until Elijah called for fire-filled peripety to fall from heaven. You know the story of Daniel, how he was in a lion's den and how the lions had growling stomachs and growling throats. And they were just about to eat Daniel when all of a sudden their mouths were wired shut with divine peripety. God is the God of the plot twist. God is the God who intervenes. In His hand, no destiny is out of His control. He rewrites the story. You are in the middle of this story. It's not over yet. And God can create a turnaround on the turn of a dime before you turn the page to the next chapter. And how do you know one's not about to happen for you? How do you know? You got to stay in the game. You can't toss in the towel. For heaven's sake, look at the Bethlehem barn. Who saw that? Who saw him coming? Who saw him coming? One minute, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, who can hold the entire universe in the palm of his hand. The next minute, he's holding the pinky of his mother Mary, still moist from her womb. Peripety. Friend, for all you know, your peripety will happen before the day's over. For all you know, this is the night the king cannot sleep. For all you know, this is the time that Mordecai will not bow. For all you know, this is the time that Esther will choose to pray. For all you know, the story will be turned on its head. Don't underestimate the power of God. Faith is worth the risk. Here's what God says about rulers. The Lord directs the king's thoughts. He turns them wherever He wants to. The leaders of the world are led by God. Every king, every president, every senator has to submit to the leading of God, whether they want to or not. Look what happened in the book of Esther. So please don't get wound up or disappointed or discouraged or pompous or proud about whatever happens in world history. The only one that matters is the one that occupies the throne of heaven. But most of all, you got to stay in the game. You just got to. I'm doing my best. I don't know why I think somebody needs to be talked off the ledge. But if that's you, that's God talking to you today. Esther could have given up. Mordecai could have given up. Dahlia could have given up. But they all chose the road of faith. And because they did, we know what happened to their story. What's going to happen in yours?